grade 11 workplace math, and I am the teacher Bronwyn Slade. If you'd like to participate live today, you can call the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM and also on the television at Bell Express View channel 972. You are always welcome to join me live through the Zoom link, which is available both from me, your teacher, and also your DEC. Our classes are scheduled Monday through Thursday from 9 till 10 in the morning, and we are now in our 8th week of our 9-week course. You definitely need to be submitting work at this point if you're staying on track with our course timeline. So a reminder, the support questions, the ones with a little pencil icon, are not for marking. You can decide which ones and how many to do. You do not need to hand these in. These are practice problems. You do what you need. So if you are understanding a concept, feel free to skip questions. You don't have to do them all. If you need more practice, let me know and I'm happy to send you more practice. You know what you need the most, so you need to advocate for yourself. I'm happy to comply for whatever you need. The key questions, the ones with a little key icon, these are the ones that are being submitted for grading. So these ones, you need to do all of them. If you skip a question because you're unsure of something, you got to go back and do it later. Ask me and I'm happy to help you, and then we can come back to a question if that makes sense, but you need to do them all. I'm marking all of them. Also, please show me all of your work. This way I get a full understanding of what you understand. So show me your steps and your thinking. Gives me the clearest picture of where you're making mistakes, if you are making mistakes, and if you have an actual grasp on the concepts. So please show me all of your work. So then how do you actually submit your work for marking? Well, there's 3 methods. The first method is to scan your work and send it electronically. You can scan your completed work through a device. If you have an Apple device, the Notes app has a free scan function. So you can, it's basically just a point and click sort of thing. If you have an Android device, the Google Drive app has a scan function. Both these apps generally come with those devices and are free if for some reason they're not on them. So they're pretty straightforward. I have tech tutorial videos on my YouTube channel that you can check out if you are wanting to learn how to scan and do those with those devices. Then you can send it to me through email at studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CC it to me personally at bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca. Or you can also send it to me through Facebook Messenger, where my name is B. Slate Wahsa. The second method is to drop your work off in Sioux Lookout. We have an outdoor mailbox at our location 74 Front Street. We're the bright red building next to the post office, and we have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance. And then the third method is to hand your work into your DEC. Your DEC can either send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. Connecting with me through social media is a great way to communicate and to access all of our resources. Both my Facebook profile and my YouTube channel are under the name B. Slate Wahsa. If you friend me on Facebook and subscribe to my YouTube channel, you'll get notifications every time I upload one of our videos. So all of our radio Zoom classes are recorded and posted to YouTube shortly after airing. So it's a really easy way to find all of our previous lessons as well as the most recent one. Also on my channel, I have short videos explaining common errors and confusing concepts. So if you're struggling with something, if you're making an error consistently, then I'd suggest go to my YouTube channel and see if I address it, if I already cover, maybe I explain it in just it could be a 2-minute video, it could be a 10-minute video, but something that goes into that concept specifically, then that might help you with that concept, which might help you with the concepts in the course. So it's a good place to start if you're struggling with something. Instead of just doing a general internet search, this sort of narrows things down. Also, as I said before, I have tech tutorials on my site. So there are a few things that just in terms of how to use technology that is related to our course that's a great place to just go, and maybe it'll give you a tool that you could use. Math is a really visual subject, so I strongly encourage you to connect with the videos. Understanding all the pieces is going to make most sense if you see how I'm doing it, opposed to just listening to me talk. You can join me through the Zoom link, even if you don't want to ask questions or you don't want to talk to me, totally fine. But you can also watch the YouTube channel videos on your own time, and then you can pause them, stop them, come back to them, slow things down. I had to talk fast to squish everything in, but on YouTube, you can slow it down if you need to. So everything's there. If for some reason you can't access the YouTube videos or the Zoom broadcast, if you don't have reliable internet or something like that, let me know and I'm happy to send you a copy of the videos so that you have that full experience and you really can set yourself up for the most success. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out and contact me. I am here to support you, so please let me know. My email address is bronwyn.slate, and that's spelled BRONWYN.SLATE@nnec.on.ca. You can connect with me through Facebook, where my name is MEL3E Wahsa. You can call me at the office at 807-737-1488, extension 2209, or toll free 1-800-667-3703. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and I teach from 9 to 11, so it's not easy to get me at that time. But if you need to connect with me outside of those hours, let me know and we can try to make something that works for both of us. All right, we are wrapping up. We are getting so close to being done all of our new material. Today we're looking at lesson 19, which is reading charts and schedules. So let's dive in. Our learning goals are that at the end of this lesson, you'll be able to interpret and describe information regarding routes, schedules for travel by airplane, train, or bus, and you'll understand how to compare costs in regards to travel. You know you've met the learning goals because you can find schedules and fares for buses, trains, and planes, and you can explain schedules, routes, maps, and various other components of travel. When will you use this in real life? Well, we're learning how to see the whole picture. When you are planning a trip, like we did in our previous lesson with a road trip, there were lots of different components, so lots of different parts that you need to plan for. If you are not driving, if you are using other modes of transportation to plan a trip, then there are different things that you need to pay attention to, different components that all fit together in order for you to make an accurate decision about the plans that you're making. So by looking at the whole picture means that we can then plan the parts. But first, let's activate our brain with some mental math. I don't believe in mad math minutes. They are stressful, time-based tests that don't actually teach students skills. They just reward students whose brains works in ways that are great with memorization and with speed. If that's not the way your brain works, then these tests just create anxiety and make you feel bad. So we don't do those. They're not something that we spend time on. Instead, we develop strategies that we can use in various situations that we can practice and that are based on our comfort level and different friendly numbers that work for us. It's all about what works for you. So our question today is 318 plus 63, and we're going to use the concept or the strategy of compensation. So that means that we're going to compensate one number with parts from the other number. So we're going to make friendly numbers in different ways. And again, with these questions, you can do them in multiple different ways. I'm just going to do what my brain does, but your brain might do something different, and that's totally fine. It's okay to do it differently than I do it. So this number 318 plus 63, well, I don't like this 18 and this 318. That doesn't feel friendly to me. But if it was 320, that would be friendly. So if I add 2 That's going to make that 320. And that I find is friendly. So what I'm going to do when I compensate, what that means is that I'm going to, because I took 2, I'm going to increase this number by 2, then I need to decrease this number by 2. So I'm going to subtract 2 from that. And now I get 61, because 63 take away 2 is 61. So because I've just moved 2 from one number to the other number, I haven't changed my relationship. I'm still adding the same amounts. I just have done it in smaller pieces. So now if I look at 320 plus 61, well, that's, to me, feels fairly friendly. I know that 320, so 20 plus 60 is 80. So 320 plus 61 is going to be 381. And that is fairly manageable for me to do this. Again, all of these questions are about our strategy. They aren't about being the most elegant way of writing it down. If you do the algorithm, the standard algorithm that most of us have learned through elementary school and have been drilled into us, and is the only tool that we have, that's really good for writing things down. That the whole point of those algorithms is the most elegant, the simplest, the straightest forward way of writing it down. This is about understanding strategies that we can do mentally, or that we can understand what's going on. It's not about it looking pretty writing down. It's about it making sense for us in our brains. All right, and that's our activation of our brain today. All right, so mine's on. What do we need to know before we dive into this lesson? I just want to do a little bit of a talk about the 24-hour clock. Often with schedules, like airplane schedules or bus schedules, their time is in 24-hour clocks, or military time, some folks might call it. And so it's just important to understand how to convert back and forth between those times, so that you make sure that you are arriving on time for, if you're trying to catch a flight or something. It's really important. So on here we have a standard analog clock with the face with all the numbers. And so we have the black numbers on the outside are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So those are our morning hours. And then the red numbers inside are the corresponding military time. So in the afternoon. So in the afternoon, if it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, then instead of saying 5 p.m., if you're using 24-hour clock, then you're going to say that it's 1700 hours. So basically, all of the numbers on the outside, you're adding 12 to, because you've already had 12 hours in that day. And that's how you get the military or the 24-hour clock number. So to practice, we're going to do a couple of these. So convert, the first one we're going to say is convert these AM and PM times to the 24-hour clock. So we're going to convert from using AM and PM, so morning and afternoon, to the 24-hour clock. So number one is 7:35 a.m. Well, 7:35 a.m. is 7:35 in 24-hour clock. It's still the same because we're talking about in the morning. Then at 2:50 p.m. Okay, so because it's in the afternoon, it's p.m. So that means we have to add 12 hours. We have to add the 12 hours in the morning. So 2 for 2 o'clock plus 12 is 14. So for in 24-hour clock, that would be 14:50. Then let's jump to another one. Let's jump to here, 10:17 p.m. So 10:17 p.m. is going to be, because in the afternoon, we need to add 12 hours to the hours. So that's going to be 22:17. Then here at number 9, we have 12:06 a.m. Because a.m., that means that it's the morning. So that means that it's still. So because it's a.m., this one is tricky. The 12 o'clock ones are tricky. So really that's going to be 00:06, because it is in the morning. The 12 o'clock ones are a little bit weird because we don't do 24. We don't do 12 plus 12 to get 24. It's the only one that's different where we say 00. And then that means that it is midnight, 6 minutes after midnight. All right, so then the second type of question, we have convert these 24-hour clocks to AM and PM. So we're going backwards. So here where it says 0525, well, that's less than 12. So that means that it is in the morning. So it's 5:25 AM. Here, when I have 15:10, so 15 is greater than 12. So that means that it's in the afternoon. So I do 15 take away 12 is going to be 3. So 3:10 PM is the time in the afternoon. Here, 18:42, so 18 is bigger than 12. So 18 take away 12 is 6:42 PM. Here where I see 0056, because it's 00, that means that it is 12 midnight that we're talking about. So it would be 12:56 AM. So that's the one that you don't subtract for, you just sort of have to think logically what's going on. Yeah, that's basically how you do a 24-hour clock. If you want to do some practice, great. If you want to ask me questions, let me know. All right, so let's explore our new learning. Let's dive in. We're first going to look just at buses, trains, and planes. What are some of the options that we have available in our area? And this is on page 34 of your IL booklet. So with buses, trains, and planes, you need to be able to read charts and schedules. When traveling, it is essential to be able to interpret charts and schedules, as well as the costs associated with different methods of travel. So there's sort of two parts. You want to be able to know where you're going and how you're going there and when you're going. And then you also need to look at how much it's going to cost. So these are different elements that when you're planning by these methods of transportation, they have to look at. So things to consider when you are planning to travel like this is the departure and arrival times may be in 24-hour clocks. So you need to be paying attention to that. Times are based on the local time zone. So the duration might look long or short if you're crossing time zones. So if you are flying from Winnipeg, which is the same time zone as we are in Sioux Lookout, so central time zone, and you're flying to Toronto, or you're flying to Vancouver, you're changing time zones. And so that means that they're going to give you the times, the arrival times, the departure times are going to be based off of the local time. But that might mean that the duration, how long the flight looks, it might look really long or really short because you might be adding or subtracting extra hours based on those time zones. So just something to be aware of. The prices may be per person or one way or have additional fees. This is what can be really frustrating when you are booking these sorts of travel, is that you think that it's going to be one fee, one price, and then you continue to click through and there's just more and more things added on, or it's only per one person and you're traveling with 3 people. And so all of a sudden it's 3 times as much, or it's only one way and you need to come back too. And so that it doubles once you are finished. So it can be really confusing. The prices can look cheap, and then once you are finished, feel like they are 6 or 7 times the amount that you thought you were starting with. And that can be really frustrating. So don't bank on the price until you are finished the whole process. Taxes are based on the local province or territory. So unlike the departure. So we've been talking about taxes and how they're different. In Ontario, it's 13% HST, but in Alberta, there is no PST, it's only GST. So if you are flying to Alberta, that from, say, from Thunder Bay, so when your tax on your flight to Calgary, leaving Thunder Bay is going to have 13% tax. Your tax coming back from Calgary to Thunder Bay is only going to have 5% tax because it's based on the departure place, the place where you're starting. There may be stops, transfers, or layovers. So these are things to pay attention to when you're planning in terms of if you have to transfer a plane, how long do you have between flights? So that are you actually going to have time to transfer? If you are going from a train to a plane? Do you have time to get from the train station to the airport? Are you just stopping you're flying to Winnipeg and you're just from Sioux Lookout and you're just stopping in Red Lake? Do you have to change planes, or you're only there for 10 minutes to get more people on the plane and some people off the plane? Like, it's good to just sort of, again, look at the whole picture of what's going on. All right, so now we're going to look at some specific options for buses, trains, and planes based on Northwestern Ontario. So first, we're just going to look at the Hub Transit, which is in Sioux Lookout. So this is a local bus option in Sioux Lookout that has been closed recently and is returning next week. We're starting back on October 31st on Halloween, and it's free on Halloween, free on October 31st when they get going. This is the Hub Transit. And starting November 1st, then they'll start charging rides. So this is Hub Transit only has one bus. They're looking at getting another one, or there's a shuttle that goes between hotels and some prime locations. But this is a very small transit system in Sioux Lookout that isn't too extensive, but it can be really useful. So you need to call them and they'll come and pick you up and then take you someplace. I've never used it, so I don't know too much about it, but right now they run from Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., but they're off from lunch from 12 till 1. And it costs $5 per adult, and children 12 and under are $2.50 a ride, and they only have exact change. They will not give you any change back. So if you don't have exact change, then you end up paying more. So that's just important to know. You can get a pass from the municipal office. If you think that's something that you're going to be using a lot, you can go and check in there and you might get a deal, or else then you just don't need to have exact change. They are planning on expanding their hours and their schedule routes. So that's coming up. You can go check that out at hubtransit.org. That you can get more information. So check that out if that's something that you think you would be wanting to use. This is just a local, there's not too much information about this. It's just a local Sioux Lookout thing that you can check out if that would be useful for you locally. Then from some more buses that are not in Sioux Lookout, but who are larger transit, Casper is a option if you are wanting to travel from Sioux Lookout to a couple other places. So you can go, I have one map showing that you can go from Sioux Lookout to all the way to Winnipeg. So you can stop in Dryden, Vermilion Bay, Kenora. There might be other stops along the way, or you can also go up to Red Lake. You can also take Casper to Thunder Bay. That's a different route that I don't have the map to show, but if you go to gocasper.com, you can get more information about that, the different routes that are option. Let's see if it's going to link into that. It doesn't seem to be working for me, so we're just going to cancel that for right now. Going and checking out gocasper.com will tell you the fares and the schedules, which we'll look at a little bit later. So this is just another option of having a bus transit locally in Northwestern Ontario and into southern Manitoba. Oh, here, it finally opened. Again, slowly. So here, gocasper.com is the website. Then you can put in I don't know if it's the website that is slow or if it is my internet, which can be sometimes really slow. But you can select, I don't want to click too much because then it's just going to make things slow down. But you can go in here and you can book your tickets, look at the schedules, and go from there. We'll give it a little bit longer to see if it works, but keep moving on. So then the Greyhound is something that used to be really expensive. There used to be a lot of Greyhound travel buses in Canada. That has been, like, there's no more buses in Northwestern Ontario, Greyhound buses, and there are even less and less in Southern Ontario. I don't even know if, yeah, I don't know if there's any, I don't know the buses as well because they're just have been cutting them off. Though if you're traveling to the States, there are more Greyhound bus routes. It's really focusing in the States right now. So if you want to travel from Canada to the US, that might be an option to use the Greyhound bus. But we're not going to go into it too much just because they really have cut down a lot. There's not very many routes. But you can check out greyhound.ca to see if there are any routes if you want to travel. Then by train, we have the Via Rail is back open. It wasn't running for a few years due to COVID-19, but now it is back running, and there are a few main routes for Via Rail. So there's the Great Western Way, which goes from Toronto through Sudbury, up through Sioux Lookout, Winnipeg, then Saskatoon, up to Edmonton, Jasper, Kamloops, and then to Vancouver. It has lots of other little stops along the way, but that's the main route. Then there are some adventure routes that come off of that are little going to specific places in Canada that are like going up to Churchill. Like it's a little adventure. You go on that. And then you have to come back. Yes. Then it also goes out to the Maritimes. There is a train that you can take that goes out the Maritimes, and there is a train that goes from Southern Ontario to through Southern Quebec. So there's not a ton of routes, but there's a few routes that are the option. Again, Via Rail, you can go to viarail.ca and check out those routes a little bit more specifically if you want. And then there are lots of ways to fly. So locally in Northwestern Ontario, Wasaya and Bearskins are two of the local airlines that fly into communities. Many of you, I'm sure, have experienced both of these airlines. And then they also fly from Sioux Lookout to Winnipeg or to Thunder Bay. When you are, so then some national airlines are Air Canada, WestJet, Porter. These fly from bigger centers, so they don't fly out of Sioux Lookout, but they fly out of Thunder Bay or Winnipeg to other places in the world, either in Canada or in other places, other countries. And really, they all have websites that you go to, and then you put in where you want to come from. From some reason, this is Sudbury, but you can do like Thunder Bay. So you type in Thunder Bay, and then you say where you want to go to. Toronto, say, so, and then you pick your departure, when you want to go, and when you want to come back. And then you search your flights, and they will let you know this. So here, one thing to notice is that it says US. So for some reason, I don't know why, it frustrates me, but for some reason, the default is for the currency to be in American dollars, even though we're in Canada talking about Air Canada, a Canadian airline. So you want to go and change that to Canadian dollars so that the prices will be something that is, sorry, for some reason, this is just not working for me. Yeah, you want it to be in Canadian. So make sure that they're in Canadian dollars because that's going to change the prices. And then once you're into these, you can then see the times. It's nonstop. So this is leaving Thunder Bay at 5 in the morning. It's nonstop, and it arrives at 6:45 in Toronto. Later on, you can see here, it says 17:30. So that's 5:30 in the afternoon, and arrives at 7:30, 1928, 7:30. And there's different prices based on those things. And then once you even click on it, they have basic different prices based on the different services that you're hoping for. So this is when it gets really frustrating because you think that it's going to be $232, but really based on everything that you need, maybe it's going to be $437. And so you have to work through all of these different steps to figure out what is really quite right. Anyway, that's just one airline. I will link all of these airlines in the show notes so that you can go and check them out. There's also travel services like Expedia.ca, Skyscanner, Cheapo Air. There are a ton of different travel services that you can look online that will then tell you all of your options. So you can be flying from, if you aren't attached to the airline, then flying from Thunder Bay to Toronto, you can use either Air Canada, WestJet, or Porter, but having to go to each of these websites and check that out might be frustrating. Whereas if you go to Expedia and you just type in Thunder Bay to Toronto on these dates, then they'll give you all the different airline options, and then you can pick what makes the most sense based on your timeline or the cost. That might be more important than what the airline is that you're flying. So they can be useful. Again, there are fees and taxes and things. So when you first start out, what you think the price is going to be different than when you end, which is incredibly frustrating, but just something to be aware of. So here, looking at the schedule in a little bit more detail. This is one. So I put in going from St. John to Thunder Bay. And we're flying, so Air Canada, this is the flight. Tells me that it's Air Canada, the dates. And then it tells me the time that you are taking off, departing from St. John's International Airport. The travel time, it's 2 hours and 4 minutes, and then the arrival time. So here we need to land in Halifax, and we have a 41-minute layover. So we are there for 41 minutes. And then we potentially are having to change, we're going to be changing flights because we're now on a new airplane. So you'll get off and have to get onto a new flight. And then you leave Halifax at 11 a.m. and you arrive in Ottawa at 11:45 a.m. Here you're like, wait a second, I left at 11 a.m. and I arrived at 46 a.m., but it tells me that it's a travel time of 1 hour and 46 minutes. Well, we've crossed a time zone, right? So that's why the times don't make sense, because in terms of, they don't add up to the total travel time, because we are going over a time zone. So that means that it seems like it only took 45 minutes, but really we're in the air for 1 hour and 45 minutes, but that time change happens. And so the times are in the local time. Then we have a 2 hour and 54-minute layover in Ottawa. So we'll be waiting at the airport for 2 hours and 54 minutes, and then getting on a new airplane, going from Ottawa to Billy Bishop in Toronto. Then in Billy Bishop in Toronto, here we have a 5 hour and 11-minute layover, and you have to transfer from Billy Bishop to Toronto Pearson International Airport. So that means that you need to take a bus or a train. There's a shuttle that goes from Billy Bishop, sort of, not really. There, you have to figure out how to get from Billy Bishop, which is downtown, to Toronto Pearson Airport, which is outside of town. So there's a shuttle that you need to get to the train shuttle. Like there's a bus shuttle that you need to get to that then gets to the train shuttle that goes to the airport, from one airport to the other airport. So that's a little bit tricky. So I know that because I've been to Toronto and I've lived in Toronto and I know it a little bit well. But if that needed to happen to me in Ottawa, I wouldn't know that because I don't know Ottawa very well. So that's something to look into. You'd have to click here and figure that out. And then you arrive in Thunder Bay at 11:02 p.m. So this is just one schedule that is not necessarily the most direct flight. This is, maybe that seems like too much and you don't want to do that, but this is why understanding how a schedule works is really, really important. Okay, so let's do some examples so that we can understand how to interpret these different routes. So example 1, we're looking at Casper. This is a bus, remember, Casper bus. And it says, where do you get picked up in Sioux Lookout and what time? So looking here, we can see it says Sioux Lookout here on my schedule. and it says Tim Hortons. So I'm getting picked up in Tim Hortons. And it says 1349 here in brackets. So that is going to be 1349, which is equal to 1:49 p.m. So that's what time I'm getting picked up. Then the second part, where do you get dropped off in Kakabeka? At what time? So we look through, we see, okay, we go to Norwich, then Ignace, then Uppsala, then Kakabeka at the Esso gas station at 19:23. So we get dropped off at Esso at 19:23. Well, that is 19, take away 12 is 7:23 p.m. And there we go. That's how we read the departure and arrival times are also here. And it also says no transfers. You stay on the same bus. You don't have to transfer buses. So that's all useful information. Then for this particular ticket, let's look and see how many people are traveling. So if we look through this information, we see, okay, in the details, we have an adult, a child, and a senior. So there's 3 people. And how many stops does the bus make? So we start in Sioux Lookout. So then we stop in Norwich, Ignace 2, Uppsala 3, and then Kakabeka is 4. So it stops at 3 places in between. So that's just good to know how many stops you're going to have along the way. All right, now we are looking at another, looking at some fares for this, I believe is via, there's no, there's no logo on these pages that I captured, but I'm pretty sure this is via. So this is the train. So here we're looking at how many people are traveling. So we see we have a passenger 1 who's an adult, we have a passenger 2, which is youth, and we have passenger 3, which is a child. So we have 3 passengers. But then if we look up here, it says infant travel fee free on parent's lap. So here we say, oh, actually we have 4 passengers, because one of our passengers is an infant. So it looks like instead of booking a seat for this, for the baby is just going to be traveling on the adult's lap. Then it says for your comfort on long trips, we recommend to select child instead and to book a seat for your baby. So you can book a $306 seat for your baby so that you have 4 seats for 4 people, but you decide if you want to do that or not. If you're just having only 3 seats is enough room is fine too. And then it says, does every passenger pay the same amount? So if we look at the fare and we see no, the adult and youth, and if you go into details into the via site, you find out how old adults and youths are. So the adult and youth pay $612. The child fare is $306, and the baby is free. Also noting here, we're seeing we're going from Winnipeg to Vancouver. That's our route. Just good to notice. All right, then here, what time do you leave Winnipeg? How long are you on the train? So let's look at Winnipeg. So on Winnipeg, we leave on June 6th at 21:30. which is equal to 9:30 p.m. And then it says that we are on the train for 2 days, 12 hours and 30 minutes. And we arrive on June 9th at 8 a.m. So we are there for multiple days. We're on the train for 2 days, 12 hours and 30 minutes. And that makes sense because it's a long way. What time do you leave Vancouver? So coming back from Vancouver to Winnipeg, we leave at June 20th at 15 o'clock, which is equal to 3 p.m. And then if we look here, it says 2 days and 5 hours. So why does it take longer? My question is wrong. Why does it take longer to come back? It doesn't. It's longer to drive there or to take the train there. Why is it, if it's 2 days, 12 hours and 30 minutes to get there and 2 days and 5 hours to get back, why might it take longer when you're traveling the same distance? So you want to think about things that might take longer is that there's only one rail line. And so you might have to wait often you have to wait along the tracks to actually wait for other freight trains to pass and things like that. So even though the distance is the same, your timeline could be different. All right, example 3. Why are there 2 departure times for flying from Bearskin to Bearskin Lake to Thunder Bay? My bad. So here we can look, and this is, we can see that there is, because we're going from Bearskin to Thunder Bay, but we have 2 flights because we are flying from Bearskin to Sioux Lookout and then from Sioux Lookout to Thunder Bay. So there's a stopover in Sioux Lookout. And so there's a departure time from Bearskin and there's a departure time from Sioux Lookout. And then why are there 3 different fares? So there's 3 different fares because there's 3 different levels. So you can, depending on your needs, you can have different levels. So do you need checked baggage? Do you need to have a seat close to the front of the plane? You can pay more to have that option. Do you need to have, are you paying for a meal? There's various things, there's add-ons that are built into the different prices. And so if you look at the details, then you can find out more about what the different levels offer you. Then why are there 2 departure times, but the same arrival time when flying from Thunder Bay to Bearskin Lake? So here, if we are now going back and we have Thunder Bay and we end up in Bearskin Lake so we leave Thunder Bay at 1300 and we end up in Bearskin Lake at 1445. And then down here, we leave Thunder Bay at 8:30 and we end up in Bearskin Lake at 1445. Well, that's because we can look at, and we can see here, the layover on the second list is 5 hours in Sioux Lookout, whereas the layover in the first one is only 30 minutes in Sioux Lookout. So you can leave Thunder Bay at 2 different times and land in Sioux Lookout and then either be in Sioux Lookout for longer or shorter. But then your Sioux Lookout flight, you can see the Sioux Lookout leaves at 13:30, which is 1:30 for both flights. So your first flight, you have 2 different options, but your second flight is the same option. It's the same flight for the second flight, but you could arrive in Sioux Lookout earlier or later. So second flight is the same. Then it says, is $624.90 the final cost? So here it says starting from $624.90. So no, there's going to be taxes and fees. This is what it's always hard. It's frustrating because there's always more costs. Then here, find the differences. What are the ways these 9 flights are different? So if you look at, so this is all going from Montreal to Iqaluit, and you can see that there's various different things. So when you're choosing, this is like if you're searching on like Expedia or a travel site, or even just on Air Canada on its own site, there might be a lot of different options. So the times when you're leaving are different. Where you're going, here you have 2 stops. So you're stopping at 2 different places, and how long you're there for is different. Where you're stopping here, this is a code for Toronto. This is a code, I think, for Ottawa. So you're stopping at different, your layovers are in different places. Here it looks like you're stopping in Toronto and then Ottawa. Here it looks like you're stopping in Ottawa and then Toronto. So those are different options. So those are various different things that looking at in terms of how long you are stopped over, as well as your departure and your arrival times are all different. So there's lots of different things to look at when you are traveling. I think this means that there's Wi-Fi on the plane for that leg. So from Montreal to Toronto, you have Wi-Fi on the plane, but from Toronto to Iqaluit, you don't have Wi-Fi on the plane. I think that's what that means. Okay, so now you can do the support questions on page 36 to 38, questions 1 through 3. And now we are going to consolidate, connect everything that we have learned. So we talked about the various transportation, the modes of transportation in terms of buses, trains, and planes. And things that we wanted to consider when we were looking at these various things are schedules. So the departures and the arrival times, the stops, transfers, layovers, durations, all of these things are going to impact the length of your travel, as well as also how much time you have to transfer and things like that is all really important to pay attention to. So hopefully now you can find schedules for buses, trains, and planes. Using those websites are really your best way to go in and figure out where the schedules are. And you can explain schedules, routes, maps, and other various components of travel. So we didn't look too much at the fares today. We looked more at the understanding the schedules and where planes or trains or buses are going. All right, so that is all that we have today for lesson 19. Our next class will be lesson 20, which is our very last class of new material. And then the rest of our time will be review to set you up for success for your final assignment. So if you have any questions at this point, please reach out. As we are wrapping up the course, we want to make sure that your understanding is everything to the best of your ability. So please reach out and contact me. My number at the office is 807-737-1488, extension 2209. Or you can call me toll free at 1-800-667-3703. You can email me always at bronwyn.slate, and that is spelled BRONWYN.SLATE@nnec.on.ca. You can reach me through Facebook at MEL3E Wahsa. And also remember, all of our lessons are up on YouTube at MEL3E Wahsa is the name of the channel there as well. So everything is there. You can find it all under a playlist called MEL3E. So if you need to review past material, go check it out there. Everything is there so that you have access to everything. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. That is the easiest time to get a hold of me, though I'm pretty good at responding quickly if you are working on your work outside of those hours, feel free to send me a message and I'll get back to you most likely the next day if it's past my office hours. And we'll connect. Definitely, we can make it work. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you have a lovely day and I'll talk to you again soon. Mwich.